goal of this meeting, to make it valuable, is to share our story on how we've grown with AWS, grown our AI practice from scratch just about 3 years ago to about 120 people now, completely organically, completely with federal growth. So sharing some lessons on that process, some of the kind of pain points our clients have had, and approaches that have allowed us to really accelerate our growth. And in short, that's really been starting from the mission first. That's been the key. I'll just give a quick intro to Credence and myself. So Credence Management Solutions, we're now a mid-sized to large-sized government contractor. We really, and in short, I'll just be direct, we really separate ourselves from product companies in that we're completely organically grown. We have one roadmap, which is clients and their mission interests. And then in the way we separate from a very large companies, we're completely privately owned. That allows us to be extremely agile, surge support to our clients' most important pain points. Just some of the symbols that you can see here really show how much we've invested in our team. We're a top workplace several years in a row. And completely, we never took any VC money or any of that. We grew completely because we were client obsessed, customer obsessed. So very resonant with Amazon's mission in that sense. And then I'm Dr. Vic Barua. I'm the AI and data practice lead in Credence. I run our AI and data work. Before I joined Credence, I had my own couple companies, but really it's been a great 4 years with Credence. Really trying to show and trying to make this a valuable experience for y'all as well. Just a quick snapshot of our company. We've got about 1,000 employees serving national security, about 1,000 supporting humanitarian missions, over 100 AI data people that we've grown in just about 2 years, building off of the support of a team of 300 cyber people. About 500 million a year, a bit more than that. And then really the key point is that 90% exceptional CPARs. We've been growing completely from the mission side. So the way we really launched our growth, and we were able to have that growth in the last 3 years, is being completely mission focused. And that means both from a perspective of our development strategy internally, but also where we focus with our clients. We focus on our clients' problems first. We actually avoided the CIO and the CTO shop of most of our clients. We went directly to the mission problems. And we started with DLA and some other clients really about 10 years ago. And we noticed that there were several cloud and hosting problems that we would have to fix before we would actually move into things like AI and more esoteric technologies like quantum that we're looking into now. So we saw a huge amount of challenges in terms of just lack of uptime for very critical resources, overflows of cost, difficulties in lift and shift to cloud. We started solving those first. This is just a representation of the many problems that we saw in DOD, but also in DLA. So we started bringing these solutions into DLA. And we figured that if we can help solve their mission, we could then start bringing in AI on a harness that was much more secure than rather just attacking with AI first. And that's really how it panned out. We started with just hosting, hand in hand with AWS. Over the years, we've deployed and modernized and migrated over 250 applications. Really, that especially in the last 4 years. But then establishing that framework of the modern cloud architecture, data framework, DR Coops, all of that created a harness for us to bring AI capability to our clients. Things like AI Ops, initially just starting with the optimization of the cloud that we've put our clients in now, but then actually bespoke solutions. So this is just an example of the approach that we've taken, right? We first start with the migrating, then the optimization, and then the modernization. And because we've done all the hard work in terms of establishing an enclave that's scalable, that's secure, it became much easier to bring those AI applications to them. And we had to effectively optimize and take our client through that process, right? Starting with initial forklift, then embracing AWS, and then optimizing for AWS. But in the process, we were able to not only reduce costs, secure, make them scalable, and then ultimately work in terms of curating, migrating their data, establishing APIs. Just to give a sense of scale here, this is the Defense Automatic Addressing System, DAS. You all might have heard of it, working in DLA. It's got 30 million transactions a day. So it's a petabyte scale application. We wanted to bring AI to this because they have huge risks with fraud, cost overruns. We wanted to do that 10 years ago. But we realized that's not going to be possible at all with a spaghetti diagram mess of data that you have. So we worked with them first to take them to cloud, establish a proper cloud framework, then establish API gateways across the entire organization. But because we did that heavy lifting the first 4 years, Now we're able to rapidly deploy AI applications with them. So we've already deployed 4 AI use cases from scratch in the last 9 months. 3 of them will actually go into prod in the next month. They are ATO'd as well. And part of the reason we were able to get very quick ATO, and I hope these are the kinds of lessons we're really trying to give you in this meeting, and hopefully we can converse about this, is that because we control the cloud enclave, we control the data story, and we control the APIs, we're able to bring the AI applications directly into their systems. The AI is not a different application, it's part of their application, and it can inherit the continuous ATO processes of their applications. But you wouldn't be able to do that unless you're their host and you take care of their data. So that's been a big recipe of our success there. This is a standard data fabric approach. Got this from AWS. This is probably very familiar for people who work with AWS a lot. But not only did we standardize our cloud migration approach, we've standardized our data approach to really have this type of data fabric. You could say accelerator or framework where you have producers and consumers in their own enclaves, data shared together with a mesh registry. The benefits, of course, if you work in data are clear, right? You have the decoupling of the data. You have minimal stakeholder interface. They don't really have to worry about the data. The architecture takes care of it. And again, it was natural and easy to put this in place because we started with working with their cloud journey. If we came in at the data point, I'm not even talking about coming in at the AI point, there'd be no way we'd be able to implement this. But if you start with cloud, if you create a separate enclave with your customers, you can establish this type of data fabric in that separate enclave. Once you have this data fabric and the data is secure, then you can start quickly building AI applications on top of that that can inherit the ATO of those existing applications. So then going into a bit more of that, now that we've established the cloud, we've established the data, going into our approach for AI and analytics solutions, it really starts with the client. It's been said, I think, many times today that AI is not the solution for everything. You have to really be focused on what use cases, what are relevant, where AI really brings value, because it is an expensive service. So we do that full life cycle first, right? We engage with the client in terms of data discovery. In many cases, we're both their cloud host and we manage their data, so data discovery becomes very easy to us. With many of our partners, we've seen that this is a non-starter because they don't have access to the data, which is another reason why I suggest trying to make your own cloud enclave or have your own data connection established first. After that, we can do the model development, and as much of the client as the client wants to do of this, they can. In general, we do the full life cycle, from data discovery to model development to final sustainment of the solution as well. And one differentiator that's enabled us to make a lot of progress with our clients' penetration is our approach that we build bespoke solutions for them on a cloud enclave and a data fabric that they know because we build it. But also, all the solutions are completely owned by the client. We don't take any license costs. We don't keep any models. We don't do federated learning with the models from an internal model to their models. Everything is on their end. It just happens that we also manage their end in terms of their enclave. So that makes it a very seamless transition. That's what's allowed us to bring these FedRAMP IL4, IL5 approved AI tools to our clients. Right now, we have about 7 prod deployments of AI, but that's going to probably double in the next few months. And we keep on going through this. In the process, we've actually modernized your clients, our clients' policies as well. So before we started engaging with DAS, DLA did not have an ITSD for LLMs in SageMaker. Now it does. So now we're working with new projects in DLA, piggybacking on the ITSD that we did with DAS. So if you can penetrate in one part, you can inherit it in other parts, at least within the agency. And that's been one of our keys in growing that work. And feel free to ask any questions. I really want this to be a conversation. I know it's late in the day already, so really hoping this can provide some value in terms of approach. These are just some examples. I'll just go through some examples that we've started with DLA, but then how we use those lessons then to apply that to other customers. So with DLA, we ran the FedMol application, the modernization of the application, and a classic problem of fraud detection. The supplier catalogs that were going into the system, it's an e-commerce system, were not being validated. There was just too much data. And the process previously of manual validation was too much. They literally turned off the button to do the manual validation. That's where we came in. We established effectively, and this was not as much of a generative AI solution, but it was a natural language processing solution to do a fuzzy match and a data linkage between a true gold standard of data and the data that's coming into the system. And through that, we were able to validate 200,000 new items daily. We took this application from idea to prod in 6 months. This is a production-ready application that currently exists in FedMall. And again, we were able to do that because we knew the data, and we already hosted FedMall before we even had the contract to modernize it. So that was a key aspect to really the rapid deployment of this application. Similarly with AI Ops, because we host so many of these applications, WAF, DAS, EDA, you have a pretty large cloud bill. And we've established contracts with our clients. It's another technique we use to both incentivize us, but also to make it a very palatable deal to our clients, is we take a firm fixed price contract approach, where if there's risk of cloud cost overrunning, we bear that risk. So the client gets a very nice and comfortable promise out of that, and we're additionally incentivized to reduce cloud costs as much as possible. This actually incentivizes us to look into AI further, particularly with things like AI Ops, to establish predictive analytics on our resource usage, recommendations, and as much automation as possible to cut down resource utilization or optimize it, while maintaining an extremely stringent SLA of 99.99% uptime. Within 2 weeks of implementing this, we had 20% cost reductions in cloud. We now have 40% month-over-month cost reductions across the over 250 applications we host for the DLA. But again, it started with the fact that we already had that type of AI-ready harness on cloud and data ready to implement this very quickly. This is another example. This is where we've really pushed the envelope with DAS. DAS is a transaction bus with millions of transactions, almost 20 million transactions a day. And you can imagine that there can be lots of transaction anomalies. And each single transaction anomaly, currently it's completely reactively processed. They see the problem and then they go back to the transaction. A single anomaly could indicate an issue with a supplier, an issue with the security of the network. So that was a classic AI problem. We've established pattern of life models into the DAS application itself. It's not a separate app. It is now part of the overall DAS system that is constantly tracking the transactions and finding anomalies based on effectively the huge amount of data that we have historically on how these transactions work. We've also established things like knowledge graphs there as well, so you can do root cause analysis. These technologies did not exist previously in DLA. They did not even have the approvals, but because we had the Cloud Enclave, we cleaned up their data, we could get these technologies into DAS very quickly, and now they are part of the application as opposed to a standalone system. Over time, what we've realized as well is, and in my previous company, I had an AI-focused company, this was even 10 years ago, the approach was you find a product idea, you find a customer niche, and you really try to target that from the product perspective. But in Credence, we really flip that perspective, where by focusing on our clients and our mission needs, bringing AI solutions where they're necessary, we've created these accelerators organically. Our intention was not to actually create these accelerators from the start. They bubbled up and evolved out of our mission support work. So accelerators like predictive analytics bubbled up, things like knowledge management, particularly with Gen AI, bubbled up, even things like machine vision and threat detection on the cyber side bubbled up as a consequence of the work that we started doing with really hosting these clients' work and really cleaning up the data of these clients. We took those lessons and we established innovation labs, similar to many of the innovation labs that exist in other companies. Octo is one that comes to mind immediately, where we bring all these technologies together and the best minds together to solve individual problems of our clients. I think particularly if you're a mid-sized private company, something like this is very powerful because you can be agile enough to surge support. If you're a very large company, having a breakaway group that can do this kind of function, I would imagine would be very, very helpful. It's certainly been helpful for us to bring a lot of capability very quickly to our clients. So an example of that capability is our work with GSA. So we've been supporting GSA for the last 4 years with an AEA contract, but we also engaged with their fleet department. They had many of the similar problems that you must have heard of from throughout the day, right? Data accessibility and inefficiencies in terms of analysis. If you think about a fleet manager, this is a person who might have to manage hundreds of cars and do root cause analysis in a matter of days over disparate siloed data sets, probably have to establish some type of predictive analytics from scratch. It was an unsurmountable problem, really, and they were really paralyzed. We came in and we proposed a solution of a Gen AI capability. We had already matured some of this capability with our clients in DAS. We had the accelerator. And so we proposed this capability, which can cut down hours of that root cause processing work by pulling the data together, establishing predictive models on top, and then connecting those predictive models themselves to the Gen AI. So this is an overall architecture. I'm sure you all have seen many of these types of LLM application architectures, but effectively you take data of all types, you feed that into a layer which has got natural language processing, OCR, effectively models that can unpack the data. You can establish predictive models as well and feed that data into an LLM, goes to a UI, and then that can feed into other application systems. Our approach, because we're a mission-centric company, has never been to build the new Netscape or Internet Explorer. We're really looking to build an Expedia for people who want to travel. So really leverage the power of AI to build bespoke, mission-focused solutions, and take that same concept, right, where we take that solution and put it into the infrastructure that the client owns, so their data is completely secure, it's at rest, they fully own it, they become very comfortable with it. This is an example of the knowledge management interface that we developed, where this is your type of classic ChatGPT chatbot. You can ask a question, it's RAG trained, you get the sources from it as well. It can go in depth. Because we have a great relationship with our GSA client, we have a very good idea of what sources to curate for it. We really took it to the next level in terms of predictions, and this was the really useful use case for GSA. We deployed this up to GSA stage. We're still continuing to work with them to deploy this one into prod. But here what you have is you have extensive data sets connected as well as your textual data, and you have prompt engineering built into the background of the LLM itself. It is a part of the application, so that when the LLM is asked a question, it can ask, you can ask a question like, how many of my vehicles are high risk? It can give you a numeric answer by generating a SQL query to do that. But because we have prompt engineering built into the back end, it can push further and give you an interpretation of that answer and a recommendation of behavior you should take based on things like other documents, other knowledge that the LLM is trained by. So that really allowed us to provide really a lot of value. And because we were mission focused, we knew that we would have to build something like this. It really wouldn't be enough to build a normal chatbot to serve our client's mission. This is a case where the mission really advanced our push on technology. Pushing further, our clients asked us, okay, you have this chatbot capability, you can parse text data, you can parse numeric data, can you build my reports? I have situation reports, I have to take up the chain. Multiple clients have asked us about this. So we leveraged that same type of LLM capability. Instead of having LLM as the application, LLM becomes a part of the application and builds a larger capability. In this case, an automatically generated report, which is parameterized. The fields that are on this report are completely generated by LLMs processing scraped text data. Then going even further, we realized, okay, we have a good sense of working with LLMs, we have a good sense of working with predictive models, we know how to operationalize them, we know how to get them ATO'd quickly. Can we deploy them into weapon systems and warfighter? We know that the warfighter, particularly at the edge, has a big need for analyzing huge amounts of data. So we have a contract with DCGS at Warner Robins, a fairly large one, where we came to them and we pitched this kind of capability. We showed them the lessons that we've learned in working with an AWS framework that enables a very scalable AI. And we started working with them on a real-time analytics problem set. So these are analysts. They're looking at sensor data of things like planes, U-2 planes, tanks, at edge, and they convert that sensor data with a little bit of analytics, but a lot of manual work into open source intelligence, then that goes up the kill chain. It is a data overburden problem. That's why we have a bit of a picture of an atlas here. So what could we do to help solve some of those problems? Well, we thought, okay, we have a sense of how we can very quickly deploy AI applications. Even though the Air Force has its own bespoke layer with Advana and Platform One, a lot of those Iron Bank containers are AWS based. So we could leverage a lot of our knowledge. And we started building an RTA solution with the Air Force. And this really goes back to that concept of an AI harness. Because we had the concepts of an AI harness from a cloud perspective and a data perspective, we could go and establish an AI harness quite readily with our client at the Air Force. This is at a TS level enclave. And then integrate other types of applications that were already cleared on their side, things like TensorFlow applications, deep learning video applications, and including things like ArcGIS as well and some SOSET applications to establish a framework where they could really input that sensor data and get some analytics on top of it, get some eventually full motion video detection on top of it. So this is what our RTA project was, really deploying the first AI/ML capability to an operational environment in DCGS. Our Our framework was establishing that sensor data coming in, creating, this is an example of what the application looks like, really harnessing that type of AI fabric and AI harness that we had from our previous projects into here to rapidly deploy this capability. And then ultimately, we built AI with aid detect, where you have the full motion video analysis of sensor data coming from things like satellites, coming from things like U2. This is just a small part of it, as you can see, unclassified for official use only. There's a lot going on behind the scenes here. But you can do things like tagging videos. You can do things like tagging images in a way that was previously impossible. And there's a lot going on behind the hood here in terms of also the data engineering that had to convert all this type of sensor data into one type that you can actually display as a video. But because we had those lessons on how to establish the cloud, the data, we had a common accelerator for all of that, we were able to build aid very quickly. We were able to operationalize it with effectively the message buses. That's what these SOAs are. That then connect to the Intel community from DCGS, take those messages as well and feed into the aid application, hosted in Cloud One, of course, and then ultimately deploy it into productionalization in production in DCGS, now serving sensors on weapon systems deployed across the world, really. So the key takeaway here overall, and I can go into a bit more about the other projects, is if you start with the AI, which we had tried in some other places, the penetration was quite slow, quite limited. You get these small bespoke projects. But when we started with large mission-oriented contracts, these are contracts which you would normally think are bodies in a seat type contracts. There are a lot of pain points there. And you can learn a lot about the operational environment and how to actually operationalize the AI. And by picking away at those contracts, we were able to get a lot of AI capability brought to the government. This is an example of that scale. So we do work with humanitarian and refugee assistance, about $2 billion of work between USAID and pure humanitarian assistance. As part of that work, this is again a classic bodies on seats contract, we've been able to increase the grant processing by 20%. They process $8 billion worth of grants a year. That's this team. And we've been able to increase that from its previous number using things like NLP, using things like the knowledge management frameworks, Gen AI that we had showed previously. So again, this would not be a normal contract where you would think, okay, this is something with AI scope. But because people are so close to the mission on this contract, they have real pain points. And by attacking these types of contracts, we've been able to bring real high impact capability. Eventually, the applications that we've built here, including some of the Gen AI capabilities, they're used by 1,000 users who are government type personnel, MDs, high-level users for these types of USAID work deployed across the world. If we had just gone to the CIO shop, there's no way this would have happened. Same thing with national security. Right now, we support an extensive amount of ISR work, intelligence work, C2ISR, that's the example I showed you with AID. We also support the TIPS platform at FBI, so any of the tips that, anonymous tips, we support that entire platform. OSINT as well with AFCENT A2, so any work in terms of analysts with CENTCOM. These are, again, traditionally bodies on seat contracts. You wouldn't think there'd be scope for AI in these. Sorry, the screen just turned off. We're having a technical difficulty? That's okay. But in short, because these contracts have such a wealth of pain points, I'll give you an example with our AFCENT CENTCOM contract. This is a contract where you have, I might have died. That's okay, I can talk through it. This is a contract where you have analysts of different types of languages analyzing newspaper information from around the Middle East. Because we have this contract, we know that that's only one analyst deep. So you might have one analyst in CENTCOM who understands the dialects of Hebrew, one analyst who understands the dialects of Arabic. That's what enabled us to realize, okay, there's a big OSINT issue here. Let's build an NLP application that's particularly tailored to dialects at a level higher than Google Translate. We already have the hosting architecture because of all of our experience with AWS. We're able to deliver quick capability to that client, and now that work is starting to grow as well. So that's been the kind of resonant story with our growth, how we've been able to have, over 2,000% growth, whatever number you want to give it, right? Starting from 1 to about 120 in the last 3 years by focusing on places where people usually don't look at for AI growth. So that's, yeah. I think we have 1 more minute. So does anybody have any questions? I mean, I'm hoping this can be more of a conversation where we can share ideas. We're always looking to product companies who we can integrate with our our clients with. Yes. Yes. We didn't have to. Yeah, in a lot of cases we didn't have to. In the DLA case, we were connected with the CIO shop, but we didn't need the CIO's blessing to get ATO. Even though we have a great relationship with him, we didn't need it. That's right. Yeah, the mission, I mean, you have to have a very strong mission partner, but there are many branch chiefs who are very strong.